adopted does give you that feeling of being like a kind of an outsider. It gives you this feeling that you don't really belong. And it's not really something that you can explain. It's kind of like just a feeling of like emptiness that you get, that you can't really put your finger on, like something's just missing. And yeah, you kind of feel like an alien that came down from another planet, and you don't look like anyone, you don't have anybody's mannerisms, and people who aren't adopted completely take that for granted, like how important that is, and how kind of outcast you can feel when you don't have that, you know? When I was 9 years old, and my family took me to Florida, which is always the first place people go when they visit the US, and I just loved it. I fell in love with the place and decided from that moment on that I wanted to live here. I think the reason it became so ingrained in my head that I wanted to live here was because I felt like if I could move here, I would finally feel like I belonged somewhere, if I could make that happen for myself. I just finished college. Well, I dropped out of college because the degree that I was doing changed and it kind of got messed up. And I was wondering what I was going to do, and at that time I was the assistant manager of a bar in Ravenside, which is the village I grew up in, just outside of Nottingham. And I said to my mum, I kind of want to go and spend a year traveling. And she got angry. She was like, no. It took her a while to come around. I think the weird thing is, my whole life I've dreamt about leaving England. So I actually wasn't afraid at all to go traveling. I was so excited. It was really when I was traveling that I realized how much being adopted has affected me. When I was an adolescent, when I was like between 14 up to 20, I always kind of felt lonely and I never really knew why. But I never linked it with adoption. When people would ask me like, oh, so you're adopted, and they would always be like, sorry for like bringing it up, and I'd be like, no, it's fine. And I never really thought it affected me. And it wasn't until I went traveling that I realized that maybe it actually had. This kind of made me think, like, what are the actual effects of being adopted on a person? Like, what are the effects of being taken from your mother at that age? And and I became really interested in how things that happen to you in your childhood that you can't even remember can affect you into adulthood. And so after about 2 years of traveling with my best friend and having all these, the sudden realization that maybe being adopted actually has had quite a big impact on my life, I made the decision then that it was time to find my biological mother. I was in this tiny little outback town in Western Australia with a bunch of people I didn't know, and I emailed my mother, my adopted mother, and I asked her, I said, I think I want to find my birth mother. And she was like, okay. I think it took her a bit by surprise. She was like, oh, okay. I knew she would be supportive, but she actually offered to help me find her. And I guess to cut a long story short, I found her by looking at the electoral roll and the birth, marriages and death database online. I actually paid to join them, and the whole process took about 4 days. And we found her brother who lived in Nottingham. And he told us, I remember my mum called me and she said, I spoke to Stephen and he told me where Nicky lives. And she said, you'll never guess where she lives. And I said, where? And she goes, the US. I was like, are you serious? Because that's my dream, was to live there my whole life. And the thing is, I had this weird childhood memory. I don't even know if it's real or if I just made it up. But I remember my mum saying to me that my birth mother had said that she thought it would be better if she never saw me again. And I remember my mum saying that to me, and I don't know if she actually said it or not, or I don't know if she just said it because I was a little kid, and I don't know, but I had that in my head. So part of me, I guess more than 50% of me, was afraid that she wouldn't want to know who I was. I think about 2 days later, I was lying in my bed. My best friend and I shared a bedroom, so our beds were next to each other. She was fast asleep. It was like 2 a.m. And I was lying in my bed watching YouTube videos of adoption reunions, like people filming themselves meeting their birth mother for the first time. And I was like watching those, and I was crying because I was, I didn't know if that would ever happen to me. And then just as I decided to go to sleep, I thought I'll just quickly check my email. And I had an email from my adopted mother, but the title of the email was just Nicky in capital letters. The email said, I've just been talking to Nicky on the phone. She's so excited that you've decided to make contact and can't wait to meet you. And I just burst into tears. And that kind of changed my whole outlook on everything and made me realize that if I became a school psychologist, I could work in my chosen field, which would be psychology, and it means that I could help other children and other people deal with adoption, because I'm in a good position myself to be able to help people like that. I had so much regret about the fact that I had dropped out of school, because there was no way I could afford to go back. My parents couldn't afford to send me back, and I pretty much blew it. I thought, I'd blown my chance at getting a university education. So when my birth mother offered to help me go back, that was like a dream come true. In my second semester, I took an adolescent psychology class, and my professor told me about the profession of school psychology and how you only need a master's to do that. And that got me thinking, wow, that would actually be the most perfect job. So in the last year, that's kind of all suddenly fallen into place for me. And now I finally, for the first time in my life, I have this incredible career ahead of me that I'm really excited about. And it allows me to continue doing what I'm passionate about as well, which is traveling and helping people. It feels so incredible to be back in school after 10 years and to finally have an amazing career ahead of me and live up to my potential. And every time I go to class, every time I have to write a paper, everybody else is like complaining about it, and oh, I don't want to write this paper, but I love it. And for me, it's a second chance. It's almost like being brought back to life.